Welcome to The Swing of Things with Amanda Kraus, a brand new podcast hosted by me, Amanda Kraus, and produced with Row 360. In this episode, I'm joined by Ben Davison and Austin Hack of the U.S. Men's 8 and the U.S. Women's 8 Coxing, who hopes to steer the U.S. women to their fourth consecutive Olympic title. Rio 2016 Olympic champion and five-time world champion, Katelin Guregian. Katelin, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
So I had the opportunity to go out with you in the launch, I think that was last week, which was a total treat. I feel a little bit lucky there. But I just want to spend some time talking to you as we head into Tokyo and, hear from you on all things rowing, coxing with the women. But I'd love to sort of start with, how did you first get involved with rowing and coxing?
Okay, so I played soccer since I was a little kid. And I broke my leg playing soccer in 7th grade and again in 8th grade. And it was a really bad break. It was both the bones in my lower leg, so my tibia and my fibula, and they broke in half. And at the time I was a vegetarian and I think I wasn't getting enough protein. I was like one of those kids that's like, I'm not going to eat meat. It's mean. Now I don't eat meat for environmental reasons, but this is not the point. So I broke my leg. And the second time I broke my leg, I felt that maybe it was time to play a different sport than soccer. So I was going into high school and my dad and I looked at the list of sports that my high school offered. And when I mentioned rowing, my dad said, no, don't do that. It's too hard and you'll quit. So then I said, okay, that's what I'll be signing up for. Yeah. And I'm obviously still proving him wrong.
Of course.
However, 20 years later, got him.
And did you start out as a coxswain or as a rower?
I started out as a rower. So I rowed for 2.5 years in high school and then I became a coxswain.
Do you think that serves you well, having had that time as a rower?
It definitely helped me in the first couple years of my career, which obviously played a role in, what college I went to and what boats I made. So it definitely helped me out big time because I knew right off the bat what was annoying to a rower and what was helpful to a rower. And I also understood the terminology, which is really hard to teach novice coxswains who are supposed to be this leader in the boat, but they, like everyone else, have literally no idea what's going on. So it was nice to start coxing with just a basic foundation of what rowing even is.
Do you remember that first time when you coxed a boat?
I remember it vividly. The first time I ever coxed a boat, I came into the dock too fast and we cracked 2 riggers off the hull.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Wait, this is literally the very first time you docked?
It was the very first time I docked in my whole life. And to hit 2 riggers in a row, I must have been going so fast. And the dock is just like a 1-boat dock. It's not one of those long. I would have gone onto the shore. Yeah. I took it with speed.
That was your one shot at it, and you took it with speed. You weren't kidding around.
And the boat was called the Mojo, and we had to send it. I know. We had to send it back to Vespoli to get fixed because my steering was so bad that our boatman couldn't fix it. And everyone for the rest of high school called me Mojo Killer.
Mojo Killer.
Yeah.
That's pretty great. Did you get a shirt?
No, I just got tears, my own tears for, I would say, more than what was a reasonable amount of time to cry about that. I was so embarrassed.
Now, did you so you were in 9th grade or no, more like 11th grade?
I was a junior. Point? Yeah. So I was in 11th grade when I started coxing.
Okay. Now, did you sort of keep it together at that moment and then you lost it later? Or were you you hit the dock, you crashed the Mojo and then you just lost it? I'm kind of interested to know sort of how this went down.
I know that I didn't cry until I got home.
You kept it together.
Ish. I kept it together enough that I didn't cry, but I'm not sure how much I really kept it together. I might have just been like a deer in the headlights.
Right.
Yeah, it was horrible.
So do you tell that story a lot to young coxswains who ask for advice? And
I do tell it a lot because it's so embarrassing and so horrific of a mistake that I want everyone to know that it's okay to make mistakes. Even if you break the boat and it has to go back to the manufacturer to get fixed, you can still be a really good coxswain.
You can be a mojo killer and a world champion. Yeah, like you can. Yeah, I mean, I think that's an important life lesson. So what would you say, whenever people have asked me over the years, what does a coxswain do? Brand new people. And I said, well, first the coxswain steers and then they motivate everybody, Like, what do you think of, what's your most important job when you're coxing? Like, what's job number one?
Well, I guess steering is job number one, because if I can't steer, then nothing else really matters.
I assume you've gotten a lot better.
Yes, I've gotten a lot better. Thank you. Yes, I've gotten a lot better. But yeah, steering is the most important. And then mostly my job is just to execute the plan, whether that's the practice plan or the race plan. Like, the other boats have a coxswain. It's someone who's also rowing, who is calling the drills or making technical calls or calling the rating or the speed. And the 8 doesn't have a person that is rowing be the coxswain because the boat's too big. And so you can't hear one person throughout the whole boat. So that's my job, is just to do basically what my teammates are doing in 4s and pairs. Yeah, my job is to motivate, especially in a racing situation when we need a little something to pull together.
Yeah. Now, does it help you? Does it go hand in hand the better you know the women you're coxing, or the men? But for now, it's women. Does it help if you know them better versus if somebody just said, "Here's an 8 of fantastic women, go cox them"? I mean, is that personal connection help you to be as successful as you've been?
Yeah, it's so important. Because being with the team, I can see what motivates people to show up to practice every day and what motivates people to work their hardest. I can see what kind of doubts people start to have when they do creep in. And then I can help combat those kinds of things. And I can draw on what motivates the team as a whole or what motivates people as individuals when it's time for me to be the motivator and not them doing their internal motivation.
So that does come into play. I was so impressed being in the launch with you and just hearing you talk about, you kind of knew what was going to happen next almost with these pairs, and
I got lucky, I think, but thank you.
and why and who was motivated, and you really knew so much about them, which was, it seemed important. Do you have a special connection with whoever is that stroke seat in that 8? What does that look like?
I definitely do. When I started coxing at UW, I basically had no idea what I was doing. Like, I'd coxed a year and a half in high school, and I was on this team with guys that had won medals at Junior Worlds, and I was terrified and I didn't know what was going on. And the way that I learned how to feel the boat and how to be a good coxswain was by communicating with my stroke seat. So, like, he would tell me to make a technical call, and at first I would just parrot him. And then after a while, I started to think, like, okay, how does the boat feel right now? What's the speed? What is he really talking about? Like, what is going to happen? And try and make my own kind of guess as to what this call was going to do to the boat, and then make the call and then feel the difference. Like, do we get faster? Does it feel smoother? And that was like how I started to learn how to feel the boat. And that was really cool because then I was able to start making those calls before he said anything. And that was, like me just learning how to be a better technician. And I feel the same way about whoever is stroking the boat when we go out in any lineup. When there's a lap that, maybe I made a call, or maybe I wasn't really sure how the boat was feeling or how people responded to my call, I'll still ask, like, I thought that got better. What did you think? Because maybe I'm wrong. And sometimes I am wrong. And, that my teammate's like, well, it was okay here, but we still need to work on this. And sometimes we're on the same page and then I'm like, cool, got it right.
So what are the days like now for you women all training together? You know, what time do you get up? When do you get to the boathouse? How many times a day? What are the days looking like?
It's actually for like right now in this very moment, we're practicing. We warm up at 6:30. We practice at 7, and then we come back in the afternoon for an afternoon row. Last week, we were doing 2 morning rows and an afternoon row. So it's really always changing, especially right now because we're in the middle of selection.
Right.
The schedule is really wonky.
And so for our listeners, I think most people know what selection means, but can you walk us through what that is?
Yeah. So we are in the middle of our big boat selection camp. So that is for the sweep team selection for the 8 and the 4 that will go to Tokyo. The quad is also in selection. So, but they're like training separately, and it's kind of fun because sometimes we will show up for our practice and they'll be doing their last pieces and we'll get to watch and see what's going on. But basically we're in this block of training where our coaches are making the final decisions of who's going to be in the boats. So we're doing more racing, we're doing more testing, and we are putting together lineups that are feasible Olympic lineups for Tokyo.
So what's that like?
It's actually, I thought that it would be more like it was in Rio when we were preparing for Rio. And it's not totally different, but it's definitely different. We did like a pairs race last week. Everyone got to choose their partner, and we did kind of like a mock NSR because we didn't have an NSR this year because of COVID. We're going to do a 2K test on the erg, and we're doing some pieces in big boats. So there's some switches. We're just trying to show up every day and be prepared for anything. It's pretty stressful, but it's also really, really fun.
Yeah, that's what I would have guessed, but I didn't want to assume. Yeah, all of those things. Tense, stressful, exciting. And so shifting over to race day, Katelin, like when you're there on race day, what's your favorite sort of moment? I guess I would guess that it's, when you cross the finish line and you've won. So I'm going to take that out as a possibility because, what that would be the best moment.
Yeah,
right?
totally.
Favorite moment. Okay. So let's take that out of the equation or as an option. Favorite moment. It's race day.
Okay. My favorite moment is when we lengthen off the start and get into our base. If we do it right, that's my favorite moment. If we don't do it right, then that's definitely not my favorite moment. But
not your favorite. Do you say that? This is not my favorite moment.
No, but I'm thinking it. I'm like, what do we do? Like shoot. And I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And the time is ticking by. It's like when you flip the hourglass, it's like we don't have any more time to get into our rhythm. But when we hit it, it's the best feeling in the world because the boat just lifts up out of the water in this special way. And you can feel when it's lifted up out of the water instead of kind of like when the boat is sitting in the water and you're taking a stroke where the boat lifts and then it falls back and it lifts and it falls back. And when you're in this perfect race rhythm, it just stays up out of the water and you catch it before it falls back down into the water. And it really does feel like you're flying.
That's a beautiful description.
Thank you.
What are you saying? And do you say how do you refer to the group? Like women, guys, ladies?
Yeah.
What do you say? Like you people? You people,
definitely you people. Normally when I'm in the race, it's guys or I'm not even sure if I refer to them as anything. Because we're just all together. There's no need to refer to anyone.
They know who you're talking to. And so what in that moment when the boat lifts up and you've accomplished that moment, what are you saying to them?
I mean, in my voice, I'm saying this is it, but I'm saying it as if I opened the front door on Christmas Day and my dream car was in my driveway as a present. Like so excited and happy and this is it. Like, it's perfect. This is it. This is exactly where you want to be. And everyone knows it. I can feel it. They can feel it. They can hear it in my voice. but they can also feel it. They can feel when it's right on. And it's really cool because you're getting the benefit of having lengthened into this perfect rhythm. And then you're getting this added benefit of everyone's excitement around the fact that it feels good and you did it. And this is something we believe in.
Yeah, that must be amazing.
It's awesome.
I guess taking it in the other direction, do you feel like as the coxswain, this added pressure to be the one who is, when there are challenging days, whether it's at a race or more recently, because no one's been racing much, just at practices, do you feel that you have this added pressure of being the person who needs to keep everyone up and positive, even when you're feeling like, you're having a low moment or day, or no?
Well, I think in a positive situation, like a positive team situation, everyone is taking on that role at different times. So like on the one hand, no. And then on the other hand, I think that my default is to compartmentalize anything that is stressing me out. And it doesn't feel to me like an effort to do that. It just, whatever negativity or stress I'm feeling just goes somewhere else until the race is over. And I remember after Rio, I stayed in my bed for almost 48 hours and I was just sobbing. I was so tired and we had won, but I just felt like everything, all the stress that I had compartmentalized for the past 3 months just came flooding into my life and my brain and my body. And it was really it was a crazy feeling.
Wow. Even after such great success.
Yeah. After winning. And it was one of the best days of my life. And I just, that night, you get to go to the Team USA house after your race and we celebrated and I had one drink and Nareg thought that I had been partying because I was slurring my words. I couldn't find my phone. I didn't know what was going on, but it was just the exhaustion and like all of the feelings that I had been putting aside, just like flooding back in. It was nuts.
Well, they had to go somewhere, right? And then come back at some point.
Exactly.
Yeah. So your work was done and maybe they were like, okay, we're coming back now, Katelin.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was really nuts.
Wow. That must have been an incredible feeling though, crossing that finish line.
It was so awesome. Yeah, it was so awesome.
So thinking about Tokyo, who do you think about the most in terms of the other women's eight? What other countries? Or do you not think that way?
Oh my gosh, I definitely think that way. I think everyone does, to a degree. But I think about New Zealand and Australia because they beat us last year or in 2019 at Worlds. Mm-hmm. I think about Canada. They were right there and they almost beat us. They're always right there. I think about Great Britain. I think about Romania. I'm thinking about China right now. They just qualified and beat Romania. And it's interesting. Last quad, Romania also qualified through the last chance regatta and ended up winning a medal. So it's really crazy how tight the field gets in the Olympic year. So my eyes definitely on everyone.
That's super exciting. What do you think, what are you thinking about for these Olympics? And we all expect them to be so different than Rio because of COVID. What are your thoughts heading into them? Or, what's your sort of strategy for going into such an unprecedented sort of setting for the Olympics?
So I actually feel really fortunate. At most world championships and 100% at the Olympics that I've been to and also that my teammates tell me, Tom kind of absolutely sequesters the team. So you are either in your room or at the race course or at the dining hall. And when you're at the race course, you walk to the bus together and you go to the race course together and you leave the race course together. And when you're at the dining hall, you meet, in the hallway or at the building that you're staying at and you walk over to the dining hall together, you eat together and you walk back together.
So even without COVID.
Right. We are in a bubble.
Tom was well prepared for COVID.
He really was.
Yeah.
So the nice thing is that this is how we've operated as a team for a couple decades, and that part of it won't be anything new, which is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What happens for you after Tokyo? For you, Katelin, not the team, for you as an individual. Your identity has been so shaped by this sport for so long. You're married to a rower, also a very successful rower. So what happens come August, September?
Yeah. Narg and I are moving to Brooklyn, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm so excited. He's been working from home since last February, so a year and some months. And he's working from home for the foreseeable future. So we're gonna go to New York, and
all right. We're gonna welcome you here.
Yeah, thank you. We both love the city so much, and it's such a unique time to just kind of do something new and fun, and I'm really excited.
That's pretty fantastic. Of course, I have to make a plug for the girls at Row New York have been asking for you. So I'm putting that hat on for a second and saying they're gonna expect you to show up at the boathouse sometime.
I hope so. I really hope so.
That would be fantastic. And the boys too, but especially the girls. So speaking of which, do you have any advice besides maybe slow down? That's what I always say to the novices. You know, you're not going for speed to the novice coxswains when they're landing. You know, you don't have to do this fast.
Yeah.
So I know you probably would advise don't land too quickly. Don't dock too quickly. But other advice, I'm being serious now, for young women coming up through college and thinking about the national team, whether as a rower or coxswain. You and I talked about this a little bit in the launch, how, you know, these women in college now are training at this really very high level. So any words of wisdom for them as you sort of head towards your final races or race this summer? It's
really hard to break into the national team as a coxswain, just because you don't have an erg score or, you know, like a height or weight or a 1 minute test, a power score to kind of separate yourself from the rest of the crowd. I would say that it's definitely important to be on a team that is winning races. So when you're looking at colleges, that's something to look at. And if your team is not successful, then there's other ways to win races, like participating in club rowing in the summer. But you have to be able to put yourself in a situation where you can win races, because that speaks a lot to your ability. And the other thing is that recommendations from your coach are really important. And I don't want to get too into the weeds, but when you're making your coxswain recording, I'm sure they want to hear this. It's really important to think about how you are executing the plan much more than how you are motivating your athletes. So you're sending your recording to someone who has no idea what your goals as a boat or a program are. They have no idea how the race is playing out, if you're in first, if you're in last. So you want the person who's listening to your recording to be able to know what your goals are as a boat and as a team, where you are in the race, and whether or not you're achieving those goals and what you're doing to get faster or to try and get better.
Right. So walk them through that.
Yeah. And a lot of times there's like kind of key words that you use as a coxswain that your boat knows. And you either need to explain what those keywords are and what they mean to the crew, or you need to be able to submit a recording where you're not really using those phrases that only mean something to you and your boat.
That won't be relevant if you're suddenly like, watermelon.
Exactly. Yes.
Nobody knows what that means. Yeah. That's code for Power 10.
Exactly.
Is there anything you're allowed to tell us that you will be using or something that really gets this group going?
It's interesting when I think about what motivates the group. Like right now is the time where I'm really digging into that. So like right now is where I'm starting to figure out what our identity is as a team. And then when the boat comes together, I'll be trying to figure out what is our identity as a boat. And that's what I'll be drawing from. So like what motivates people right now isn't the same as what will be. Sometimes it is, but it isn't necessarily the same as what will be motivating them in Tokyo. So it evolves.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And what you don't know what's next in Brooklyn, right? I mean, you can eat some good food and spend some time, but career-wise? Do you know what you want to do?
Okay.
And it's okay to say no.
I don't not know what I want to do. I actually applied to NYU to a PhD program, and I did not get in. They rejected me. And I had a little bit of a mental breakdown for about a day. I felt panicked. But I actually started to realize that I think it was probably for the best. I wanted to join a PhD program in sociology. And I knew exactly what I wanted to study and how I wanted to study it. And at the end of the day, I think that taking 7 years to do research would have been interesting. And I love learning, and I love doing research. I love reading. I love critical thinking. But I really like interacting with people. And I think that if I had decided to spend my life in academia, I'm not certain that I would have been able to interact with the people that I wanted to help, or the ideas that I wanted to research. I'm not sure that I would have been able to, come face to face with how to apply those things into the real world. So I'm actually pretty happy that it didn't work out. And I don't think that I'll be reapplying to school, but I was looking at jobs at Roe, New York. And
I know some people there.
Yeah,
okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm trying right now to step away from thinking about what's next. Like I spent a lot of time obviously applying to school, and that was in the fall. But now I'm trying to compartmentalize that and put more time and energy into it after Tokyo.
Yeah. I think that's a good plan. You have good things to focus on right now. I so appreciate you spending time with us, and I know that there are going to be a million young coxswains out there who are going to love listening to this and hearing from you, and they'll be cheering for you in Tokyo and the women. And my final question that I ask all of the guests is, what is your favorite post-row meal? What's your go-to? You've docked the boat. You're heading home, or heading to the diner.
Ice cream.
Oh, straight to the ice cream.
Yeah, I feel like ice cream is my favorite go-to almost anytime. But post-row, like, you're thirsty because chances are it's hot out. You're racing in the summer and the sun's out. You're thirsty and you're hungry, and ice cream is like a double, It'll cool you down. It'll fill you up. This is a plug for ice cream.
I like that. What's the flavor?
Wow. Well, okay. Thank you so much for asking. My favorite flavor of ice cream is Ben & Jerry's mint chocolate cookie, because it's mint ice cream, and instead of chocolate chips, which I don't love, it's Oreos. So that's absolutely
so interesting. That's where we part ways, Katelin, because I was with you with the mint, but I like the chips and not the cookie.
But the chips just get frozen, and then you can't. They're just hard, frozen.
I like them like that. Oh, yeah. It's okay. We could still forge a friendship here. We could push through the cookies and the chips.
Thank you.
I'll show you where to go when you're here in Brooklyn. So huge good luck to you. You don't need luck. You've got skills and bravery, and you know how to dock the boat now.
Thank goodness. But it does still scare me, I will say. Like,
it does
still scare me. Yeah. And for all of the novice coxswains who are terrified of docking, which I think is all of them, one thing that's really helpful is to tell all your rowers not to untie their feet or undo their oarlock or chit chat with each other, because people start to do the practice is over. They're like, oh, I'm gonna get my water, do this, do that, put my shirt on.
No.
None of that.
Don't do that.
Because you gotta, they need to be ready to take a stroke or back or hold or whatever.
Yeah, you never know when they're gonna. I'm actually also, as a coach, I feel like I'm in safe space now because you said this. Like, you said you get nervous. Whenever I coach novices, I was not confident in my skills when having them dock. Because when you have novice coxswains, traditionally the coaches help the novice coxswains. It sounds like whoever your coach was didn't get that memo. But I always feel like I need to help that coxswain. And I have to be honest, I still find it intimidating. I'm like, I don't know, 2-seat. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, anything could happen.
Yeah, it sure can. So that makes me feel so much better that you still get nervous, coxswain.
I definitely docking. Do. And like, also, there's some people that you tell them to row and they're going to row no pressure, and other people are going to whack it. So normally I'll just say like, row at half slide or row arms only to have a little more control
also
over,
good advice.
whatever that person is going to decide to do on that stroke.
Right.
Because you never know.
Right. I hope the junior coxswains are all still listening about ice cream flavors and how to dock. So, yeah. Well, thank you so much. We're going to be cheering. And it's been such a pleasure getting to know you a bit.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
That was Katelin Guregian. Next, I spoke to Ben Davison and Austin Hack of the U.S. Men's 8. These two qualified the U.S. Men's 8 for the Tokyo Olympics by finishing 5th at the 2019 World Rowing Championships. Despite not competing internationally since 2019 due to the global pandemic, they are positive about their chances at Tokyo. Welcome to the swing of things to both of you, Ben and Austin. Thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
So you guys are training out in Oakland and living there. And did you already row this morning?
We did. Yeah, we did. In Orinda though. So taking a little drive so we can get on some fresh water that's not tidal. But yeah, we already got a session in.
Are you rowing twice a day? 3 times a day? What's the schedule these days?
Yeah, it's typically been twice a day. Sometimes in the afternoons we'll erg or lift too, just to mix it up a little bit. Depends if the waters it can get a bit windy here at the estuary. So
all right. Well, we're just going to jump in. It's exciting to talk to both of you as we head into the final days before Tokyo. I know you're in the middle of selection, so I'm sure there's a lot of anxiety and excitement both in the air. And I'm going to start with you, Austin, because it was your birthday yesterday. How old did you turn?
29. So
all right. Okay.
I'm starting to get up there.
Yeah. I feel for you. That's really old. So 29. Okay. So Austin, my questions for you are, I have a bunch. I guess one of the first ones is, I don't think I realized this. I knew who you were. I didn't realize you were 6'8" though.
Yeah.
And, do people always ask you when you walk into a store or a restaurant, do you play X? I had to ask you this.
They do always ask me if I play X.
And what is it? What is the X?
Well, it's never rowing.
Right.
It's
what is it?
It's basically always basketball.
Right.
Maybe like once I've gotten volleyball. It's funny because on Zoom, I've been working at a company for the past year where I haven't met almost anyone in person. So they only know what I look like on Zoom. So really no one has any idea how tall I am. But it's funny you mentioned this because my sister, for a birthday gag gift once, gave me these business cards that say, like, I'm Austin. Yes, I'm 6'8". Yes, really. No, I don't play basketball. So it has all the key information right there.
There you go. You can just hand those out. Yeah. I understand that. So my next question for you is around the personalities in the crew out there, the bunch of guys training together. I imagine there are lots of different personalities and sort of what's your role on the team? Who are you in that group?
Wow, great question. And maybe Ben.
I was going to say maybe we should ask Ben what he thinks.
But no, I've been I guess at this point I'm one of the veterans on the team. I'm one of the older guys on the team at 29. So having been to the Rio Olympics as well, I try to bring some insight for how the things were in the old days, but also try to bring confidence, give guys confidence when I feel things are going well. And in general, I think our team has dealt with the pandemic really well. And I think 2021 is shaping hopefully to be pretty good for us. So I just try to bring that experience and positivity when I see things that I like, and kind of try to bring maybe an older athlete's level-headedness.
At the ripe age of 29, true.
Exactly.
So Ben, would you back that up in terms of Austin? Is he that person in the boat?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I agree. I think it's we do have a mostly younger team, guys that haven't that have raced at the World Championships a couple of times and have not yet been to the Olympics. So it's great to have some experience around to check in occasionally. So it's for sure.
Great. And do you two row close to one another in the boat at all, ever?
Yeah, definitely. Well, we were stern pair of the boat in 2019. Rode the pair together like 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
So it varies though. We mix it up a fair amount.
So these days you're mixing it up.
Yeah, I'm not as close to Ben as I used to be.
Literally or figuratively?
I'd say more physically.
Okay. All right. And now, thinking about Austin, obviously you were in Rio. We know what unfolded there. And when you're thinking about Tokyo, what's the goal there in your mind and in the team's mind? I mean, I know you can't speak for the whole team, but, thinking about Tokyo, what are you thinking about? Everything from, in the midst of COVID, the extra year of training, and then, with it right around the corner now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, overall, I'm optimistic for our team. I think, like I was saying, I think our guys have dealt well with COVID. We have a lot of younger athletes, and it gave us an opportunity to continue to develop a lot of people. And I think the athletes and the coaches especially are pleased with the progress that we've made. And then as we get towards Tokyo, I think also thinking about how the Olympics are going to look different from last time because it's COVID. I know one thing that shocked me in 2016 was how at the starting line of the Olympics, even it didn't feel like it was it was special because it was the Olympics, but it's not like there were cameras and spotlights and rainbows and everything that I had envisioned. So I think preparing for how the starting line might feel more like a normal day than you kind of expect, even if it's the Olympic final, is key. And then on a personal level, coming in fourth place in 2016 was pretty tough. And I think is a big reason why I came back to the team to do better than that. So I think that would definitely be front of my mind. Should I be lucky enough to line up on the starting line with the rest of the guys in the US team?
I have to ask you this because the Brits from Row 360 put this on the list to ask you about. Obviously, this is tongue in cheek, but really wondering, the Stanford had the Battleship Rig.
Yeah.
And so, we're all wondering if Tatey's going to consider that. This is a joke. We're not really asking that, but
yeah, that would be. I would be pretty surprised if Tatey brought that out.
What was that? And for the listeners who don't know because to be honest, I'd never heard of the Battleship Rig before. So can you describe for our listeners what that is? It's like a bucket on drugs.
I'm happy to describe. Yeah, it's an 8, except with a gigantic bucket in the middle. So it was port, 4 starboards in a row, and then 2 more ports. So I was 7th seat, sitting behind another port. That's was definitely, it throws your head off keel a little bit. And in fact, I would say my recollection is that it felt like it was down on both sides all the time.
So you're not recommending the Stanford Battleship Rig for the US team?
No. That's okay. No, I mean, don't get me wrong. If the US team rolls up to the starting line with the Battleship, you should be very afraid. But I'm hoping that that's not what's going to happen.
Great. Okay. I'm going to move on to Ben for some questions. Ben, thanks for joining us this afternoon. My first question for you is around, I saw from one of your teammates that you were described as having a strong moral compass who knew what was best for the team. I don't actually know who said that. And maybe I should be asking Austin if he agrees with that. So we'll come back to Austin. But Ben, are you that person on the team?
Oh, well, that's funny. I've actually never heard that before. So I'm flattered. But I suppose that's quite a nice thing to say. So I would hope I am. But yeah, I'm not really sure, actually. I guess I do want the best for the team. So that's, very nice.
Good. And so humble too, huh, Austin? I mean, Austin,
yeah.
Is this true? Does he have a strong moral compass?
I'm at the start. I'm not the one who said that, so I don't know who that was. But no, I agree. I think what Ben does a great job of is he doesn't put himself above the team, and I think he does a great job of keeping his eye on what is important, which is the Olympics, and kind of like training hard every single day, even if that means that the next workout is going to hurt a little bit more, and kind of just keeping his head down and not getting distracted by kind of anything else. So I think I would agree with the line that you mentioned a minute ago.
Okay. One of my favorite things that I read about you, Ben, was your 2018 head of the Charles in the champ single, where you started, was it 24th? And then ended up, or 26th, I think you were.
Yeah.
And then you ended up winning the thing. that's kind of amazing. Can you tell us a little bit about that? I mean, did you have any idea? Like, that must have been a lot of passing too. I guess you turned around a lot.
Yeah, there was a decent amount of passing in there. I was I'll be honest, I was quite surprised. I think going into it, I was very excited to do it, but wasn't really expecting too much from it. Obviously, I was going to go and give it my best shot, but definitely when I finished and found out that I'd won, it was a bit of a shock. I just having to come from that far back and do some maneuvering and do some steering, but it was a fantastic experience.
Yeah, it must have been. And speaking of experiences, you were born in Great Britain. Does that mean, do you have dual citizenship?
Yes, that's correct. So I moved to Florida when I was 10, and then I became a citizen in 2013. So,
okay.
Yeah.
I'm not questioning that. You know, I'm not.
Yeah.
But one question I have is, does that mean you could actually compete for GB?
Yeah, I guess I could technically. I think there's rules that you would have to take 2 years off international competition to switch countries. But yeah, I guess I'm a citizen of both countries, so I could do that.
Okay. And then another question I have is, you were a Husky. And then you moved on and started rowing for Mike Tatey, who was the former head coach of Cal. A big, you guys are big rivals, right? How was that?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a little bit different. Obviously.
And Mike won't listen to this. Don't worry.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. I don't know. He might.
I'm sure he will. But it was definitely a little bit different coming from, spending 4 years up in Seattle and, at UW. And there is a strong rivalry. And then coming down here and all of a sudden I'm training at, Cal's Boathouse. So that's a little bit different. But it hasn't been anything crazy. I think you've got to sort of put the rivalry to one side eventually. There's definitely, it's fun, but you've got to sort of put it aside eventually.
Yeah. How did you feel when this is for both of you, when you heard about the postponement for the 2020 Olympics was it April of 2020 when they made the call?
I think our team started breaking up in March.
Okay. It's a little earlier. So do you remember where you were and what you thought?
Yeah, it was definitely a weird time because it sort of stops you in your tracks a little bit because you're very much 100% towards one goal and you have a purpose and you have a deadline and all this different stuff. And then all of a sudden it seemed like in the span of a couple of days and then, overnight the decision was made that that was no longer. So you kind of, for me, it kind of felt like you kind of had to just find a new direction to go in. So that took a couple of days where I was sort of figuring out like, what's going to happen next. And, but then you quickly just sort of, reevaluate the goals and set new deadlines and then start working towards those goals. So yeah, it took a little bit, it took a couple of days. It was a bit of a shock, but eventually then we started to I went home for a bit, which was great. And then sort of made a new schedule. So it was worked out.
Only a couple days.
Yeah. Huh? Yeah.
It's not very long.
No, it was.
And what about you, Austin?
Yeah, well, so I felt similarly. I think the other side of the coin was that after the Rio Olympics, I stopped rowing and I thought I was going to be done rowing. And then I moved to San Francisco. I worked for a couple of years and then I came back to the team. But I kind of came back to the team in 2019 thinking that I was only going to row for like a year and a half. So all of a sudden, the amount of time I was going to dedicate to rowing like just went way up. So that was pretty hard to square at the beginning. I ended up going back and staying with my parents for a few months, who are in Connecticut. So I don't get to see them that much living in California now. So that was kind of a blessing in disguise. Yeah, definitely at the beginning it was pretty tough. I really wasn't sure whether I wanted to keep rowing. Stuck around and things are looking pretty good now for the whole team.
Yeah. Do you feel a shift in California now with the the CDC mask mandates or being lifted a bit, or do you feel like you're sort of in this training bubble where it's not really, it doesn't feel that relevant?
I see a shift. Well, and I think everyone on our team has been vaccinated. Yeah, I feel like the state and the country on on the whole are kind of turning the corner. So you see more going to restaurants, at least outdoor dining, stuff like that. So it's the past week or two, I'd say life started to feel a bit more normal.
What about you, Ben?
Yeah, it's definitely, I feel like it's starting to get a little bit more back to normal. But we're in a bubble with the team, so we don't really get out, and I personally don't get out very much, and see much of the outside world other than maybe going to the store and walking along the street. So, and still a lot of masks out there. So,
okay, this one's easy. And Austin, I'm going to have you go first. Your favorite post-row meal. What are you thinking about as you're maybe even leaving the dock? Sometimes I think about what I'm going to eat, a few meals ahead of time. So no judgment if you're thinking about it before you launch. But for sure, as you're coming in, what are you thinking about? What's that meal?
Wow. Favorite post-row meal. I mean, so our big rows are always in the morning. So that means that my big meal is going to be a breakfast meal. And I would say what I have been really into recently is French toast. I've been buying a lot of bread. A lot of it's been getting stale. Great way to use stale bread is to make French toast out of it. So I would say that's been what I've been looking forward to recently.
That's the secret. Do you get the challah bread?
It's been sourdough actually, which you don't see every day in your French toast, but I've got some spare brioche, so I might try that next.
Oh, I bet that would be good. All right. You have my support.
Right.
All right. And Ben?
That's a tough one. Yeah, I guess same thing. If it were just any regular day, I would have, it would be some sort of a breakfast food, probably pancakes. But then I also love pizza, which is good at any time of the day. So,
are you all just huge? Like when you guys go out as a group and eat a meal, is it just ridiculous?
It can.
How much food is
Yeah,
consumed?
it can be. It's almost going out. It's tough to get enough food within a price range. So it's usually better to just cook, I find.
It's at times it's a little bit sickening to me because I've become a bit more restrained. Like I go out,
now that you're almost 30.
Yeah, I only get one entree. But when I go out and someone's like, "Could I get a burrito and the enchiladas?" I just gotta think, man, you need to cool it.
Does that happens?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. I kind of like that. I respect that.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, you see that a fair amount.
Wonderful. Well, it's been a pleasure chatting with both of you, and thank you for joining us, and really best of luck to both of you in the run up to Tokyo.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure.
That's all for this episode of The Swing of Things. I hope you've enjoyed hearing from our Tokyo 2020 Olympic athletes. In our next episode, I'm joined by our Tokyo 2020 Paralympic athletes. If you enjoyed the episode, please like, share, and follow from wherever you get your podcasts. It will help others to find us. And if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, we'd love to hear from you. Please get in touch at theswingofthings@usrowing.org. Thanks for listening.